Hi everyone, I'm Elise Padilla, the director of NAMI's STAR Center. Thank you for joining us as we explore peer support programs and talk to some awe-inspiring and empowering peer leaders in our communities who are going to share their stories of recovery, work in the community, and self-care tips. If you're new to the STAR Center, please check us out at peerstar.org, where you can learn more about us. What we want to do here is to support you to connect with the power of your own story, embrace leadership opportunities, and build communities where every person and family coping with mental health and substance use challenges has hope for a meaningful life. I look forward to sharing my story, the stories of others, and learning from each and every one of you through the STAR Center podcast titled Hear Me Now. Lora Bonnet was born and raised in Southwest Louisiana with the unique heritage of a French creole, where the food is good, the music makes you smile, and the people are friendly. Her greatest accomplishment is finding her faith. Lora is married and has 3 adult children, 2 daughters and 1 son, and she's a proud grandmother of 2 grandsons and a set of twin granddaughters. She is the founder of Louisiana Association of Peer Support and serves as the board chair and president. Lora graduated from the first peer support specialist in 2004, brought on by the Louisiana Office of Behavioral Health. And today we're going to be talking about building relationships, a topic that I know is very near and dear to Lora and something that I see as a great strength of hers. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thank you for being here today. I'm really excited just to get to talk with you, just because we don't talk that much.
Oh, yes, I'm excited too. I'm glad to be able to spend some time with you to talk to you.
Wonderful. Good. So, Lora, with your introduction and everything that you told us about who you are, of course, I'm encouraged to know you, and I'm excited to have you here today. Can you give us a little bit more of an explanation about your current role and the work that you do in peer support?
Sure. Right now, I have I would say, a dual role. I work as what they call a community health navigator with a managed care organization. And within that organization, I'm a peer support specialist. I go out to within the community and I do peer support one-on-one. We go to hospitals. We go within the community. We also do a lot of advocacy work, just making sure the peers understand how to advocate for themselves, like when they're going to the doctor, making sure that, before they go in, if they have any questions, that they kind of write it down. So we want to make sure that they get their question answered. We want to make sure also that within the community that they have the support that they need. We have a lot of our peers that, suffer with not having housing. So one of the things we work on is housing. In Louisiana, it's a big issue. We have a shortage of housing, I'm sure, in quite a bit of places. So that's one of the toughest areas, to make sure we can get shelters or group homes or family members that can possibly take them for a while. And we also provide short-term resolutions to we have what they call a food crisis, in a sense, where they may not be able to get food stamps right away. So the company does provide short-term meals until we can afford to give food. But one of the most important thing is to make sure that we care for the peers, make sure that they understand they have someone that's there, that's been there before, and that they feel that they can talk to us. And I think the other part of, I would say, what I do with peer support as within the organization that with Louisiana Association of Peer Support, which is a nonprofit organization for peers, what we try to provide right now is trying to provide more education for peers. We have probably about 300 peers that have been that went through the process of the classes to become a peer support specialist. And right now we're trying to find programs like we have done like trauma peer support, and we're trying to find other alternatives for education. So our peers, as we go out, we also serve people who just coming out the criminal justice system. So we want to make sure that we have the information we need, the tools we need to be able to, give them the services they need. So I think one of the biggest things is finding out resources in the community to connect them to the resources within the community. So as far as with LAPS go, that's the kind of things that we're developing. Also, we have a lot of peers that's working that need support on their jobs. They need sometimes it's just somebody to talk to while they're working. We also try to find, opportunities to do that within our organization to talk to them. And, just other opportunities that we feel that the peers are telling us that self-care is a big thing. They need help with self-care, because the work is wonderful, but at times if you don't take care of yourself, it can be an overload. So I think if I summed it up, that's kind of what I do within the community. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that's all? Just kidding. You do in the community health worker with the managed care organizations, but also in your work with LAPS, which is where we were lucky enough to get to meet each other. And I'm so excited to see where LAPS goes in the future, because it's so needed in Louisiana, a place for peers to have somewhere to go that will advocate for them in their profession. And so it's really
definitely.
I want to rewind a little bit. So you talk about all the amazing work that you do within LAPS and in your community health work, but how did you get involved in peer support? If you can give us a little bit, just to your comfort level of your experience, how you came across the path of peer support and how, maybe it impacted your journey of recovery and, how it really impacted you personally.
Sure. I think I've been in this profession for quite a while, but if I have to go back and really look at how I got involved with that, I would actually kind of relate it to it was a family member, my husband. My husband is a vet who, suffered with depression, and we was kind of a newlywed, and that was years ago. So we've been married for over like 15 years. So during the time we first got married, my husband was going through a lot of different things, and fortunately, he had the veteran administrations to go to, and I followed along because I was like, okay, it's just a lot going on, and I need to support him. But during that support, I actually found out a little bit more about myself. I was having my own difficulties, not understanding mental health, and knowing that I had some issues, but I just could not pinpoint everything that was going on with me because I was so concerned about him. But I like to say, with God's speed and God's help, I was able to actually identify some of my own issues as he was going through his. And it just so happened at that time, that's when peer support was starting in that environment of the Veteran Administration. And I was like amazed when I seen that the Veteran Administration at that time was helping my husband, and it was peer support. So it actually just, at that point, I was like, I got to find out more. And from there, I was very fortunate that I had a family member that actually knew of someone, because she worked in the behavior health also area. She's a counselor, and she introduced me to a lady that was over an organization called Meaningful Minds of Louisiana, which was a statewide organization. And I got to know the lady, and I started doing volunteer work, and it was so amazing. That's kind of opened the door for me wanting to advocate. I was like on fire. I wanted to know everything possible. And I think it's because just the love of knowing that I wanted to help my husband and my family as well. And it opened my eyes to understand the things I had been going through, but never knew what the name of it was or what possibly I could have done about it. So those doors actually really opened a whole new avenue for me. And that's when I started getting involved in other organizations like NAMI Louisiana, Mental Health America. I mean, I was like on fire. I wanted to know everything I possibly can know. And then peer support at some point really came out in the state sector, with the State Office of Behavior Health. And fortunately, I was able to be one of the first ones to take the peer support specialist program, the class that they had. And it just made me even more excited because I've seen that this works. This is something that works. And it's nothing better than knowing that somebody else have been through this and they can successfully, and when I say successfully, it could be 1 hour at a day, one day at a time. Whatever it is still a success. So that's kind of how I ran into peer support.
Yeah. And that's great that a lot of us found peer support through reaching out for help for others.
Yes.
An advocate, I am a peer and I love it, but it came across my path in kind of the similar way. Is I got into the workforce and I started doing job development and working in an organization that employed peers. And in talking to them, engaging and participating in groups, I had that same moment like, whoa, I have some stuff to work on. Yeah, and these are the people that helped me do it. And so, it was just in thinking we were helping others that we actually in turn really helped ourselves. And it brought us to this point of wanting to spread the word far and wide of peer support and how effective it can be. And it has been for us. So
definitely.
Yeah, what I really admire about you, Lora, and why I really wanted you here today is because you are so strong at building relationships, not only as a peer, but in the work that you do and your work with labs. So I just want to pick your brain on the topic of building relationships and how do we build relationships amongst peers and within peer networks, within different organizations. You mentioned Minds of Louisiana, NAMI Louisiana, Mental Health America, Louisiana, and that's a lot of collaboration and building relationships, which can very easily not happen in some of the areas that we work. Is organizations tend to insulate themselves and isolate and stay within what they know. And building relationships is one of the most important things that we can do as peers within organizations. So what motivates to reach out to others and other groups and to create that collaboration? What's your motivation behind it?
Well, once I got into doing volunteer work with the statewide organization I was with, I mean, I've seen so many doors open up. And when I say that, I mean, like when you start going to different meetings and meeting different people, I think if you just be authentic with people and just talk to people, you find similar things that you can actually speak about. And if you find, I mean, to me, the most important thing is to really care about people and to really show that you care about them, because people need to know that somebody really care and is genuine and you're concerned. I think it shows if you're really genuine because people know when you're not. And I think that just the idea of just reaching out, because sometimes people they kind of, they may be a little bit frigid about I don't know, but hey, just sit down. You don't always have to start talking about just peer support. You just start having a conversation. Ask them how their day are. Ask them, if they have kids. I think the most important thing, people want to know that you think that there's something special about them. And I honestly do. I know there's something special about everybody, and I want to know about it. And that's kind of how I see people, I want to know about it because I just believe within my heart that I'm missing out if I don't get to know you. And so that's kind of how I open my heart to receive people, because I know that I can learn something from them and they can most likely learn something from me. So we're not strangers. So I think that's the most important thing, is to develop relationships. I think relationships is more valuable than any money could ever be. And I really do treasure relationships in that way, because I know that they are very important and I treat them like a diamond.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, I love that. That's a really great way, is that you want to get to know people and you feel like you're missing out if you don't get to know them. So that's great.
Yes. So
what are some of the tactics that you use to gather allies in your work? How do you get people on board with the peer movement, or to even first time talking with a peer to start understanding that, your journey is just beginning and we're going to walk together in it? How do you get people on board?
I think what I do is, I say, besides just telling my story, if I tell somebody like my story, meaning that I may never get to the end because my story is so long. And I think a lot of it's like that, because you've been through a lot of trauma and different things in your life. I think one of the most important things that I have learned even doing this work, it's not just about our story as, our mental illness. We have stories beside that. Sometimes we forget who we are. So I like to ask others about, what do you like to do? I mean, like, what are your happy triggers? You know, and I don't necessarily say happy triggers to somebody I don't really know. I may actually like, what do you really enjoy in life? And then once they tell me, they may say, well, this barrier is kind of stopping me from doing that. So that kind of gives me that little inch to start working and saying, you know what, there may be a way, because, asking the question, well, why is that stopping you? If you don't mind me asking you, just getting that conversation started in a way where I want them to know that their life is important, and the things that they value, I value too. And how can I get you to where you want to go? So I believe that just having those open conversations and having a listening ear, I think we have to learn to listen more, like they say, and talk less, but really hear the person, but really hear their heart. Because if you listen to people want to be heard. That's one thing I know for sure. They want to be heard. And a lot of times, a lot of people, especially within the mental health community, people don't get the opportunity to fully get heard. And that's one of the things that's very valuable in peer support. Just allow them to say what's really on their heart. Whether you agree, we don't have to agree. We just have to figure out what they want, and how we can get them there. So that's kind of how I kind of work around doing that.
That's great. So you talked about sharing your story with them, and that's a really basic foundation, right? As we share our lived experience to tell others, either I've been where you've been, or I can understand or empathize with where you've been. And so you overcome your fear of identifying as a person in recovery, both as a peer and in your professional life, because that can be really nerve-wracking for us to take that on as part of our identity. And as powerful as it is, it can be frightening at first, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, when I first started, before I did this work, I was doing something totally different. And it wasn't fearful as much as coming to the knowledge of putting your name out and say you're a peer support specialist, and people asking you what that means and what it is. At first it was a little difficult. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but then I realized what was more important to me. And what was more important to me was that I have people within my family that suffer with different, with mental illness. And I just have to stop and realize I don't want that to go on to the next generation. I have grandkids. I have people I love out there. I don't want to see that go to the next generation and the next generation, where if I have the opportunity, not alone, because I don't believe you can do anything alone, but if I have the opportunity to be just a small part in that, and if I only have to say the truth, which is true for me, I'm a peer, someone living within recovery, that's okay with me. I had to get okay with that. And it took a while, but I really realized that the purpose was more powerful than me just saying, I don't want to do this. I think the purpose is more powerful. So it took a while, but I'm okay with it. It just took a while to get there. But that's why I think the purpose is more powerful.
That's very true. I can completely agree with that. Once we realize that our lived experience can be worn as a badge of honor, and that those show the struggles we've been through, but that we've made it out, I think that really changes the power that we feel, right? We find that self-empowerment, saying, look at the struggles I've been through. Look at the times I almost didn't make it. But let's focus now on how I did, and the people who were around me, and the collaborations that I built. And so being able to share our story helps people find that where, if we can at least put aside that shame, hopefully get rid of that shame, we can encourage others to do the same thing. And so a bigger scale, the personal stories and the personal connections, one-on-one or small groups, are incredibly powerful. Sometimes it can be difficult to get that same information to a larger group or an organization, like the work that LAPS has done in working with the state government in Louisiana. How do you translate success stories and hopefully data that shows the success of peer support? How do you translate that to bigger organizations who may or may not have lived experience of their own?
Okay, how do I translate that? I think one of the biggest things that we have to do is allow the peers to have a voice. And, I think a lot of times when we have, like, say, we had conferences before that gives the peers opportunity to have a voice. And it also gives us the opportunity to take surveys and ask questions that peers want to know, so we can get those kind of information to the state that they really do want to know what's going on, what we really need as we go out and do this type of work. So one translation would be doing a lot of doing surveys, asking questions, having small groups, whether sometimes it's over the internet, and just having conversations. And from those conversations, we take information down, and we'll be able to relate it back to the state that, we had a peer group, a phone call, a teleconference where the peers was on, and this is the kind of things that they're needing, or the support that they need in order to become, better peer support specialists. And I think the state is listening. I see different things are happening right now. We're hopefully the state will be a billable state at some point soon. I know it's supposed to happen hopefully by next year. So I think that they're listening, because that's one of the things that's very important to the peers in this state.
Very true, very true. And that's how the work is going to continue to grow within LAPS and peer support, like you said, with these different things coming up, like the potential for Medicaid billing within the state. There's so many opportunities. So we've talked about working with individuals. We've talked about working with organizations such as state administrators and the people that sometimes hold the purse strings or can really help us grow an organization. But give me a little bit of insight also on the work in the community, because we deal a lot in the work that we do with what I call mental health discrimination. And people that don't fully understand, and cultural barriers that prevent us from speaking up and saying that we need help, or that we are in our form of recovery through therapy, counseling, medication, whatever it is. So how do we reach the community who may still be fearful of identifying, or people who don't fully understand, people who have negative views or ideas about mental health concerns? How do we reach those who haven't had a direct connection with us yet?
Well, I believe that we as, when I say we, I mean organizations such as labs, such as NAMI, such as maybe Mental Health America or DBSA. I think it may be time that we look at things a little different as far as our perspective as how we reach out to people, because one of the things that I find is that as we go out into the community, a lot of people do not know what peer support is. That's one of the things. And I think that peer support, the name peer support is wonderful, but at the same time, when you describe it to them what it is, some people, they get very scared, or, people in recovery. And one of the things that I try to do is, educate them and ask them to think about it in different ways. Like I tell people, what I am part of what I call a hope builder. And that for me would look like, what's inside that person, what their dreams are, with the things that they really want to do. It is my job to help them get to that place. When they fall down, it is my job to see how I can help them get to the place that they want to be. And you know what? I think most people can look at that and say, that can be me, whether I have diabetes, whether I have heart disease. Those components are still the same, because if you have heart disease, if you have diabetes, if you have any kind of cancer or anything, most likely you're going to go through some setbacks where you're going to need someone to help you see yourself again, who you truly are, or who you truly can become, because we forget who we are. And I don't think that's just, when I say that it's something that we have to think about in a different way, and maybe start thinking how we can help others understand what peer support really is, because I believe that's a big part of it, for people opening up more and understanding what peer support is and what peer support can do. because peer support is very powerful.
So tell me about stepping out of your comfort zone, and going out and reaching out to communities. I see peers as advocates and change agents, right? We help that we walk the recovery path with, and we walk our own path. But I believe a little bit comes into play that we need to create change, whether it's in the discrimination that we see, whether it's in policies, in the way that funds are allocated. One of the things that we're talking about now in the peer movement is the level of clinical supervision that should be brought in over peers, and if the clinical supervisor should have lived experience. We're always having these discussions, but sometimes it can get a little bit difficult to be that change agent. It can be hard to be the one to say, stop this conversation, it's not going the way it needs to go, or to stand up for what we see as ethics and boundaries within peer support, our guidelines of peer support, and to sometimes stand and say, something different needs to happen, or I have a better idea. How do we find comfort in speaking up when we may be the only ones in the room that have that idea or belief?
Yeah, I have definitely been in that situation, so I definitely could understand that. One of the things I would say is that, we need to, I think, in other words, I work in the clinical area where sometimes it was just, nurses or just social workers that may not have a great understanding of what peer support is and what the power of peer support is. I think more than anything is education. I think that the more we educate people about what is peer support, so they can understand it to a level that they really can understand it, and I know that also comes with accepting that this works, because people actually sometimes have to see for themselves that it works. I think that some people are going to come along and going to be able to say, okay, I really understand this, but I think we're always going to have people that just not sure about what peer support can do. And that's okay, because we're only going to be able, I realize that some people we're going to be able to reach and some we won't be able to reach. But with the ones that we can reach, I think is far more greater than the ones that we can't reach. And I think that a lot of that can be done through education within whatever organization you're in, that we bring, like an organization like LAPS. We go out and educate people on the organizations about what is peer support, the clinical part, make them understand what we do, because even in the environment where I'm working at now, it took a while. We had to actually have meetings where we had to tell them coming on board what we do, because they did not know what peer support. They was like thinking we were just going out there and doing nothing for a while. So we had to actually really educate them, and now they see how we can be used, how peer support can be used in so many different ways. And that's a big opening for them when they find out how we can be used to, help in a way that maybe they can't help, because we're out there face to face with people. Sometimes they're up in the office. They can't see the things that we can see. So that in itself, it helps quite a bit.
Right. And it's really powerful to be able to, like you said, through education, get people on board, understand. And it's really important to not only tell our stories, but also stories of success that we've encountered as peers. So I've had moments of success that I have seen people completely transform their lives, not specifically anything I did or an organization did, but because we helped them change their mindset, and they were more likely to accept the things that peer-run organizations or health organizations were able to offer. Do you have a success story that you could share that people can kind of identify with, or say, that's why peer support is so powerful?
Yes. I guess the one that comes to mind is personal to my heart, because when I worked for, I've been working a while in a managed care organization, and at one point I worked a lot with kids. And during that process, I realized that this kid was going through so much trauma. And believe it or not, it's like sometimes when you're looking at the kids go through trauma, most likely that parents is going through trauma also. So I was able to successfully help the parent get into recovery, as well as help the child. And the reason why that was so personal to me, because I remember as a child, I was a child that didn't understand. I was a child between that 7 years old and 12 years old. Well, you really don't understand what mental illness is. And then if you have a parent that has mental illness, you totally don't know what's going on. But to be able to help that parent and to see the changes in that parent, it helped the child. And it was like a light bulb moment, because I was like, oh my God, I wish 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that was in place. You know, they had programs to help the parent, because a child at the level of 7 to 12 or whatever years old, they have no idea when a parent is having anxiety, when a parent is depressed. They know something is wrong, but they can't put a name to it. But guess what? That same child wind up having trauma and different things going on because they have no understanding. So to be able to help both of them, to me, was a success in itself, because now they have educated themselves. They are, you know, they're in therapy. They have been doing good for the last 3 to 4 years. And to me, that is what I call success. Just having an understanding and knowing that they can live a better quality of life. So that, what I would say, was a great success to me.
That's great. And isn't it so true that while you helped impacted them, they also impacted you in so many ways?
Yes, it definitely did. It helped me learn. And if I said, I learned so much. And if I say, I wish that I would have had those tools when I was, you know, even me as a parent, because I realized that comes from sometimes from generation to generation. I was affected by trauma as a child. And guess what? My children was affected by trauma by me, because I hadn't received the help that I needed until later in life. So sometimes, you know, and then you look at that when you're able to help somebody and you see, oh, I'm just so happy that that person was able to get the help, because now it can stop a cycle from moving to another generation. And that in itself made me happy that they had some tools to really help them. And they still do, and they still have been working their tools, you know, in their recovery.
And that's incredible. I just absolutely wish that we had the ability to follow up with future generations to see how that and the work you did will impact, you know, as it goes.
Definitely.
That was one of my reasons for wanting to recover myself, was because I wanted to break those generational chains of trauma. And something we talk about a lot is the culture of silence. And especially in minority populations, we deal with this culture of silence, in it being that we just don't talk about it. If we don't talk about it, it's not there, or if we don't talk about it, we have to fully understand it or deal with it. And so by building relationships like you're doing in your work, in LAPS, and just what you do as an amazing individual, Lora, is you're helping break down that culture of silence so that we can reach out and feel more comfortable in saying, okay, this has happened for generations before me, and I have decided it will no longer happen to generations after me. And so, one of the great things that I learned coincidentally while I was studying social work was that hurt people hurt people. And people heal people. And so it's really important that we identify that sometimes when people are the least lovable is when they need the most love.
Yes.
Something that we can do is reach out to them. But in transitioning the topic a little bit, it relates, how do we as peers, and how do you, Lora, make sure that you maintain your health through self-care? How do you make sure that you're okay so that you can continue to go out and help people in their healing process?
Well, that's one thing that is like the key to everything. I have put people in places that will let me know, family member as well as really close friends and people that I trust, to let me know, because believe me, I have days where I'm so happy I have the people say, you know what, let's sit down and talk a minute, because I see some things that, it's not like your normal self, how you usually behave. And I don't get offended, because I know it's people that I can trust that really care about me. So I start listening, and I start saying, that's true. That is the truth, and I have to really dig within myself to find, so what I'm going to do about this, and I still do rap plans for myself as work as well as at home, because I think that I need to be accountable because I'm going out and talk to other people. So I want to be able to give them my best. So I have to be at my best. So I have people in place that will be honest with me and will tell me, when they really believe that something is not the way it usually be, and how they know me to be, So I'm grateful for that.
And that's really important because when we're not healthy, we tend to isolate and put on a brave face or a mask or stay away from people who do know when things are happening that aren't the best. And so in this way, having people around you that know you on your good, know you on your bad days and can be there to support you. And I think it's really important to have people step in and say, something's not quite right. Let's just sit down and talk. And
yes, exactly.
That's a really important self-care tip. I really value that and appreciate it. So
definitely.
On a high note, to give you an opportunity to do a plug, what's going on next for LAPS? What's coming up with them? What are some things that we can keep an eye out for?
Well, right now, LAPS, as a matter of fact, we just gone into we was doing new bylaws and mission statement. But the biggest thing with LAPS that we want to see is we want to make sure that people who are peer support, that they get the very best, like self-care while they're working. We know that, doing surveys that we have found that there, believe it or not, there's things going on where people don't feel really comfortable in their work environment. And sometimes they feel stuck where they don't have anybody to talk to, because every environment is different. I'm very blessed because I work with about a team of 4 or 5 peer support, but there's people who work alone and they don't have that support. So I think that one of the biggest thing I want to see is that we make sure that we have things in place, like even a phone call where they can call and we can do peer support. And that way, just to keep them grounded while they're at work so they can get through things. And the other one is making sure that peer specialists, that's what we're hoping for, the billable process, so peers can be able to make an affordable living, so they don't have to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs. So that's very important to us, and giving them different opportunities out there. And that's my hope for LAP, is that peer support is known all over Louisiana, and it can fit in so many different environments. So that's kind of where LAPS is going, more about employment, more about self-care is very important.
Well, and it's great. I think it's really important, and I would love to see that model in other states as well, where a third-party organization is there to advocate for the peers. It's not necessarily run by the government, by the administration of the, it's not by any stakeholders. It's truly by and for the peers, correct?
Yes, exactly. Definitely. And that's what's most important, that the peers have a voice, because at the end of the day, they're the one who, is going through so much. And I want them always to feel free to call us, to let us know what's going on, that they can have a voice, and we're really listening to them and want to make changes. So the environment, whether they're working in or just everyday things, because everyday things, sometimes we realize that a lot of peers are kind of stuck in the home where they're very lonely. They don't have no opportunity, even if they're, like some people say, medication is just sometimes, if they choose that route, it's just one point of living a good, healthy life. If they choose that route. Therapy is also another one when they choose that route. But there is life after that. And that's a big thing for me. They have to live the best life they can, and a lot of people don't have financial things where they can go out and do stuff. So we need to create things to try to help people so they can not sit down and start getting depressed or start thinking different thoughts. And I think that's just as more important that's just as important. That's part of life. I want them to live a full life.
To finish out, do you have any words of wisdom that have helped you that either you gained through your lived experience, through working as a peer, or just from the wisdom of Lora Bonnet? Just something that you can share with people, a takeaway that kind of encompasses your beliefs, your vision, your goal, and how you work in peer support. So just any type of wisdom that you have to offer.
I think that the most important thing you can do, well, for me personally, my biggest thing that I try to live by is to always keep happy triggers in front of me. Because when I call happy triggers, like I have to identify 3 to 4 things a day that'll make me happy and then put me in a mindset where whether it's my family, whether it's, playing with my pets, any of those type of things where it makes me feel alive. Because sometimes we get so much in the routine of the day, whether it's just work. Well, where do you find that time just to relax and be yourself, whether it's meditation for you or whatever it is? That's my point of view. Would always say live to the potential that you have in yourself, because there's somebody that's dying to have that potential. Just live your full life and be as happy as you possibly can be, because life will always have stumbling blocks, but even enjoy those too.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And it's definitely something that I strive to keep in front of me, are those things that keep me happy. So when I'm not readily feeling it, I can at least look at things and look at the pictures of my family or pets, or participate in yoga. That's something that really helps me centered and understanding. And so thank you. And I'm glad that you have those things. Can you give us a sneak peek at one of the things that makes you happiest?
Oh, God, people probably would laugh at me, but I love to do what they call zydeco, and nobody probably ever heard of that. But I like to zydeco dance or zydeco music. It's kind of a culture thing in my area of Louisiana. And that's one of the things that I love to do. And I love gospel music. So between those two things, if you catch me doing that, you're going like, oh my God, look at Lora. You wouldn't know who I am.
That's beautiful. I'm going to have to find some Zydeco music to put on this episode for to share, and maybe it can become one of their favorite things.
Yes. Thank you.
That's very cool. So is there anything else that you want to share that we didn't talk about that you think is really important?
Well, I just want to really thank you. I would want to thank the Star Center, and y'all have been very helpful through the years. I know we had different directors, and I can't say enough about the support that y'all have given us. And in all honesty, LAPS would have never been able to even get to this point without having this support. So I just want to thank y'all very much for all the support y'all have given us throughout the years.
Well, thank you. It has definitely been my pleasure in getting to see LAPS grow in the little over a year that I've known you, and to see what things come together. And it's just a joy to be able to do this work, because I get to connect with people and organizations like you, Lora, and with LAPS in Louisiana.
Great. I'm happy to.
For more information and to get in touch with LAPS or Lora Bonnet directly, visit their Facebook page, LA Peer Support. There you can get more information and connect with them directly. I'm so thankful to the individuals who have come forward and been interviewed for the Star Center podcast. It's so important for individuals to be heard and to hear each other in regards to peer support and mental health. If you or someone you know needs assistance, please reach out to the following numbers. The SAMHSA National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. The NAMI National Helpline at 1-800-950-NAMI, or at info@nami.org. And of course, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Please again, feel free to reach out to us with further information, but also utilize these national helplines for any issues that you may be experiencing, any questions that you may have, or just for an opportunity to talk with someone close. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.